And here we go. Welcome to the Lords of Gaming, our quick hit video series where we break down all the biggest happenings in gaming and beyond. I'm your host, April Prince, writer for Lords of Gaming, and with me today is Lord Sovereign. Our question for the day is, with Sony's State of Play, how good did they do with their showing, and how much does fan expectation play into these kinds of events? I'll throw it to the Lord first.
Good morning, Lady April. I tell you, expectation means a lot, but it's important that they set expectations, right? I remember when you spoke to me initially, we were like, I don't know, before we knew exactly what it was, people were hoping for Metal Gear. I'm like, I don't know. They're good for doing that kind of stuff every now and again, but I think as close as we are to E3, I think we're going to get that kind of stuff at E3 if that is the case. Especially Ratchet and Clank was pretty amazing, and I think the fan base is excited to finally be getting some games. Obviously, we have Returnal this week that people mostly love, except for the fact that they're dying a lot in the game. But yeah, so getting into the State of Play, the first two things they announced, they were going to talk about two smaller games before they got into Ratchet and Clank. And the first one was Subnautica, Below Zero, I think it's called. And it's the sequel to Subnautica, which is kind of a first-person survival game that was very popular. I think it came out in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. But that's pretty cool because now you're above the water, so you're not necessarily underwater all the time, so the biome's a little bit different. And it's the same sort of thing. If you like that type of survival game where you have to craft in order to live and to eat and stuff like that, I think that's an interesting game. And the fact that it's coming to PlayStation is cool. And then we have Among Us, right? And Among Us finally making its way to PlayStation platforms, which I think is going to be huge for that game. Just like it going to Xbox or any place else in Switch after PC. That game is all about the community that's around it. And that's the type of game you want to have everywhere. So big on them to have it everywhere. I think it's going to continue to grow. I'm very happy for that team. So yeah, they have Among Us on PlayStation. And then of course we have the main event. So Larry, we were talking about basically like our histories of Ratchet and Clank. So tell me a little bit about your history of Ratchet and Clank before talking about what you thought about Rift Apart.
Well, before Rift Apart and everything, Ratchet and Clank was like more of my brother's game.
Mm-hmm.
I was more of a Spyro type player. So I would watch him play and I thought it was cool, but most of my knowledge of Ratchet and Clank comes from him, and also the fact, like, if you ever play Spyro 2, you can sort of see their beta or like concept. Right,
the shared DNA, they do sort of have that. Exactly. What did you like Jak and Daxter as well?
Oh, I love Jak and Daxter.
Yeah, that's another video.
Yeah, I still remember like the second one, but like, oh, I'm gonna kill Praxis.
Yeah. So then, how were you excited? Were you surprised when they initially announced Ratchet and Clank 2016?
I was surprised. Ratchet and Clank is sort of kind of like Crash Bandicoot was. It was sort of left to history a little bit. Like we sort of lost it.
Yeah, we had some PS3 iterations, yeah. But yeah, it did seem that since Insomniac kind of wasn't in-house 100%, they did a lot of second-party stuff with Sony, but it did seem like, okay, they're not in the family 100%. They went and did Sunset Overdrive from Microsoft. So as fans, you're looking in from the outside, you're like, I don't know where they stand. So maybe that's why we're not getting another Ratchet and Clank. And obviously they were working on one behind the scenes. So what was your take on 2016 before we get into Rift Apart?
2016, I didn't really play that one. So.
Okay, so did you get it now in the play at home sort of initiative thing? Did you pick it up?
I meant to, but.
Well, it's still there. I think it's still there, so you can definitely do that. Still there. I think it's funny because I'm glad I've been gaming for a very, very, very long time. And, I can't tell you the amount of times that I look at something, I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I'm glad to constantly be proven wrong when, years later, you see something else that's like, oh my God. And I think when I saw 2016, I was like, wow, this is really the Pixar cartoon. And yes, it kind of was for the time, but then you see Rift Apart and you're like, oh, okay. And then I'm sure in a couple of years we'll see something else.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was your take when you really saw gameplay in Rift Apart in this last State of Play?
Well, of course, we have Lombax, the female playable character.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rivet.
what I love that's different about this is like usually when you have two playable characters, their playstyles are completely different. I love that they share playstyles. Like,
Mm-hmm. I definitely, yeah, the fact that they probably, I wouldn't call them character swaps, because I think some of the weapons she's able to use are going to be different than what Ratchet can use. But I do like that, obviously they added more weapons. I like the fact that they have their own personalities. It isn't just this character swap thing. I think she's a character that's been really well thought out. And just seeing, for me, the biggest thing besides the graphics, right, to see this game look as beautiful as it does, whether it be in cutscenes or in actual gameplay, is when you look at gameplay. I watched it again on the 4K stream afterwards. The textures on the clothing, the lighting, everything is just absolutely impeccable. But the most impressive thing to me was how they've taken the lessons they've learned from Sunset Overdrive and Spider-Man to add to the traversal in this game. The things like the wall running and just the combos that come out of the wall running, the dash that shows like the sort of $6 million man sort of multiple dash thing, that it looks really cool. The traversal just feels like it's a lot more punchy. And for me, that's great, because Ratchet and Clank, one thing about Ratchet and Clank that not turned me off, but it's been different to other platformers, is it doesn't feel as bouncy, right? It's more about the shooting. It's more a shooter than it is a platformer. And I think this time around, it feels like it's going to be more of a balance of both. So I'm really, really excited for this game. I think PlayStation's finally, with Returnal now and Ratchet and Clank in June, I really do think that, the motors are starting to run, and I think the fan base is going to be happy. So what were your takes on this version of Ratchet and Clank? Would you like jaw dropped or?
I was impressed with the game. Also, for me, when it comes to like traversing, especially wall running,
Mm-hmm.
I love when they like have the like balance between you can do what you want, but also like balancing it to the point where you don't get motion sick.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had that before.
Oh, really?
Like
what kind of games is?
Like the San Francisco level in Kingdom Hearts 3 at night,
Okay.
especially. At one point, I got like motion sick from all the like dashing and running up.
Right, because they changed perspective on you a lot. You're running up walls, and I remember something about running. I don't know if that's the level you're talking about. I only played like maybe the first couple of hours, but there was a level like I'm running up a waterfall or something like that, and they changed the perspective on you so fast that if you're not used to that, yeah, it can get a little you can get a little queasy.
People said that about like Spyro Reignited too, like the motion blur was making people sick.
Yeah. So I do think that it seems like it's silky smooth, right? Well, I guess we'll find out when we get it in house, but it does really feel like it's silky smooth, and it seems like it's just another elevation of that franchise. And to me, if it really is more focused on traversal and there's a balance now with that and the combat, I think we could have really something special at Ratchet and Clank. And I think this time around it's going to appeal to more people than it normally does. Because of that, and also because of the fact that there is still, despite seeing Returnal come out now and having more games in the pipeline, there is still sort of a drought, right? For people who are able to find a PlayStation 5, there aren't that many games. So all the ones that do come out do stand out more. And I think Ratchet and Clank, because of the quality you can see, is just really, really, really gonna resonate with more people than it ever has before, I think.
Yeah. For the people that remember it from our childhood, and like most of us that grew up playing these games I don't have kids, but most people do have kids now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is one of those things that when you look at that game, you can show it to your kid, and your kid will be like, oh wow. Even the older ones, because they still play very well. Gameplay in these games has never really been the problem. There've been a few entrants and in the game in the series that haven't been as well received, but generally the games play very well, and I think that appeals to young kids as well, and that's what I mean by it having a broader appeal. You're going to have a lot of younger kids that are just going to play this cartoon looking thing, and then the old geezers like me that remember it from back in the day. It's like, oh my God, I've never seen anything look this beautiful. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the prospects of what PlayStation has to offer the rest of the year. I think we're going to see some surprises as well. So I think we'll see a few more state of plays that are going to excite us and give us some surprises. So.
So this has been the Lord's Minute. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at lordsofgaming.net. I'm April here with Lord Sovereign. Until next time, this has been the Lord's Minute.